Hi guys, it's Amber from Amber Eats Books, and I'm here today to bring you my weekly reads video. This is the video where I talk about what I read last week, what I'm currently reading, and what I hope to read for the coming week. I actually think I skipped a week. By the time I post this, it'll be more like a week and a half of reading that I've done. But I have my best friend coming in for a week, and we have plans with my husband's family during that week. They're all going to be staying in my house, so it is just going to be kind of a crazy, hectic time. So I'm not going to have time to film next week, so I figured I'd better do it now. So I'm going to film this video as well as pre-film a few other videos to post throughout the week, so I won't be actually gone from booktube, but I just won't be actually filming for booktube. After that will be booktubeathon week, and I will probably film at some point that week. I'm hoping to maybe vlog for it, but we will see. I've just been a little busy as well working on my summer of organization project. I told you guys I want to organize every aspect of my life this summer. I just have felt so frazzled coming out of the end of the school year, and so far that project is going really well. I have been able to tackle a lot of projects that I had on the list as far as cleaning my house, organizing stuff, getting rid of stuff, doing big projects around the house like doing carpet cleaning and trimming the bushes outside, just a whole bunch of things. I've been able to accomplish so much, but I've also been reading, which has been really great. So let's get into the books that I read this week. As always, I'm going to start with my lowest ranked book and work my way up to my highest ranked book. This week, my lowest ranked book was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch, and I actually gave this 3.5 stars, so it wasn't a bad read at all. It was actually a pretty good fast-paced thriller / sci-fi novel. This is the story of a man named Jason who is living his life. He thinks he has a pretty good life, and one night he is kidnapped, and when he wakes up, he realizes now he's living someone else's life. Very interesting. I don't want to give you any more than that because it will definitely spoil the novel for you guys, but I really enjoyed it. I thought maybe the science fiction would be a little bit over my head, but it wasn't. I was able to follow along. I actually called the twist ahead of time, which for me is a little bit of a downer. I did dock some points for that, so I was going to give it 4 stars, but when I was able to call the twist way ahead of time, I brought it down a little. So it was 3.5 stars, but the writing was great. The characters were great. I did think towards the end it was kind of getting a little unbelievable at that point, but it didn't take away from the rest of the story. Like, I really did enjoy the journey getting to the end of the book. So I would recommend it if you guys love a really fast-paced book, because I was just turning those pages. I was flipping it through as fast as I could. I wanted to know what was happening, and I read it so quickly for what I had been reading recently. So really enjoyed it. I don't have the first line because I actually had to return it to the library. The next book that I finished this week was The Trophy Child by Paula Daly. I rated this 3.75 stars. I read this for a buddy reads group that I joined on Goodreads. It's hosted by Lisa over at Books and Smiles. I will leave all the links down below. This is the story of a family where the mother is considered a tiger mom. She's considered someone who really pushes her child past the point of just wanting them to be successful and is basically controlling their entire life. And it's kind of what happens when the family starts unraveling and other events occur. It was really good. I will say that I loved the character development in this. I thought it was great to be able to see things from all different perspectives. I also really enjoyed how we also got the detective's perspective in this novel, so we are kind of seeing things, like I said, from all of the perspectives. I also really liked the writing in this book. I thought she did a fantastic job communicating to us the characters' thoughts and feelings, and still leaving some things a little open-ended and some things unanswered, which I kind of liked because I didn't want all the information. I did want to figure things out for myself, but I did need enough information where I felt emotionally invested, and I felt like I was in this book. The ending I kind of called ahead of time, and it was a little bit of one of those endings where you just are kind of like, oh, that was it. But I really enjoyed the writing so much, and I really enjoyed just the story getting to the ending, that it really didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. So yeah, 3.75 stars. I definitely want to pick up more books by Paula Daly now that I've read this one, because it was so good, and I absolutely love this cover. The first line in this book is, "The girls' changing room smelled heavily of sweat, mud, and a sickly sweet deodorant that was beginning to irritate the back of her throat." The next book I'd like to talk about is Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb. This is book 1 in her Tawny Man trilogy, which is the 3rd trilogy in her Realm of the Elderlings series. I know if you know nothing about Robin Hobb, that probably just sounded a little confusing, but believe me, her writing is so worth reading all of these books. I will say though, with this book, I was a little put off by the beginning because it was so slow. I just thought, is this book ever going to pick up? And finally, around the halfway point, it did. If I had not been a fan of Robin Hobb previously, and if I had not read her other books, I may have DNF'd this one if I was new to just her writing and stuff in general, because I felt like it was that slow. But when the action finally picked up around the middle of the book, I was able to finally sink myself into the story like I really wanted to. So if you're a fan of Robin Hobb and this book is coming up on your list, just know that going in, know that it may be a little slow, may feel like a little bit of a slog to get through in the beginning, but it does get better. By the end of this book though, I was sobbing, guys, like I have never sobbed in my life while reading a book. I cry while I read, like a single tear, sometimes a little bit of like crying. I'm talking full on ugly sobbing. I had tissue after tissue. I felt like I couldn't catch my breath. I've never felt that way while reading a book before, but this book really did that to me. So it was definitely worth the read. I ended up rating this 4 stars. The first line in this book is, "He came one late wet spring and brought the wide world back to my doorstep." The next book I'd like to talk about is Bloodsong by Anthony Ryan. This is book 1, I believe, in his Raven Shadows trilogy, I think it is. It may be a series, so don't quote me on that. Tina from the Never Ending Bookshelf had said that this was her favorite read of the year. Her and I are very similar when it comes to fantasy book tastes, so I definitely had to go out and pick this up. I had requested it from another library. It came in, and I've had this sitting on my shelf for, I don't know, 2 months. I think the original date that it was due back was May 22nd, and I've just kept renewing it. And the only reason why I'd kept putting off reading this book was because it's a mass market paperback size book. The font is so teeny tiny, and just holding it is so uncomfortable for me that I really did not want to pick it up just for that reason, not because of the book or the story or anything like that. Then even when I went to actually pick this book up this week, I wasn't really in the mood. I don't know what it was. I wasn't in the mood for a fantasy. I wasn't in the mood to read this size book. It was hurting my hands trying to hold it open because I have carpal tunnel in my hands. So it was hurting my hands trying to hold this tiny book open. And I was just like, oh, I'm not in the mood. But the story sucked me in. I loved this book by the time I finished it. I thought it was fantastic. I ended up rating it 4.5 stars. This is a epic fantasy. This has action, this has some romance, this has a lot of stuff built into it. I will say there was a little bit of a twist or two in the storyline that I did not see coming, and I thought that was fantastic. There's some magic in here, and really this book was just kind of like setting up for the next book. I mean, we went through a lot in this book, don't get me wrong, and I really enjoyed every moment of it, but it was really setting up for the next book. And I have to tell you guys, I cannot wait to see what the next book has in store. I will say this is like a proper fantasy novel, so if you're not really into fantasy books, this probably would not be the book that you would want to pick up. I mean, this is full-on fantasy, and you have to kind of like that type of writing and stuff. So if you're not fantasy, I would definitely skip it. But if you are a fantasy fan, this is a must read for you. So definitely recommend it. And the first line in this book is, "He had many names." Now on to what I'm currently reading and to what I hope to read. I actually just finished The Trophy Child right before making this video, so I'm not technically currently reading anything, but I do have 2 books that I would like to try to get to this week. My best friend is here visiting, so I don't know how much time for reading I will actually have. Even if I just finish one of these books, that would be great because they've been sitting on my TBR shelf for such a long time. You guys have probably already seen them multiple times if you've been following my channel. The first book is Salem's Lot by Stephen King. I have not read any Stephen King books yet this year. I don't know what is going on with me, so this is going to happen. This is going to be the next book that I pick up and hopefully finish this week. If I'm able to, I would like to also finish Once We Were Brothers by Ronald H. Balson. This is a World War II novel. I've had this sitting on my TBR shelf since, I don't know, March, April, somewhere around there, and I would just really like to get it read and get it off my shelf. All the rest of my books on my TBR shelf I have set aside either for Booktubeathon or for my August TBR. So this is the only one that's kind of a wild card and will just be fit in when I can fit in books. Anyway, those are all the books that I've read, all the books that I'm reading. I hope you guys have had a great week. Did you read anything that you absolutely loved? Anything that wasn't quite as good as you were thinking when you first went into it? Anything that was so slow that you just wanted to kind of pound your head against the wall because you wanted it to pick up speed? Anyway, let me know down in those comments below. I hope you guys have a great week and happy reading.